Welcome back to our Annapurna Base Camp series, where I share the details from our 11-day trek to Annapurna Base Camp with Intrepid Travel. Today I'll be sharing day 5 of our trek with you, as well as answering the most commonly asked questions about accommodation on the trail. Day 5, like day 4, was very wet, but luckily for us, it was the last truly rainy day on our 11-day hike. So 2 bad days of weather, 11 days of relatively good weather and good views. I'll take it. We went from Chomrong to Dobon on day 5, and we gained about 500 meters of elevation. We stopped in Upper Siwa for a tea break, rested our legs, refreshed ourselves, and then carried on hiking to Bamboo, where we had lunch. And then at lunch, we carried on to our final destination of Dobon. The highlight for me of Dobon were the views that we got of the mountain. We arrived in the evening time, had a really good dinner, played card games, of course. The dining hall was playing like a YouTube music playlist, which was very eclectic, but really, really fun. And then the next morning, we woke up to stunning views of the peak of Fishtail Mountain, which is actually one of the most sacred mountains in Nepal. The Nepali government won't even give hiking permits to climb it anymore, A, because it's too dangerous, and B, because locals believe that it is sort of the embodiment of holiness. So it was really cool to start our day like that. Last week, I answered your questions about food, and the second most asked questions that I received via email and DM and just people in the comment section were about accommodation. Before hiking to ABC, I had read so many blog posts and listened to stories from people who had done the hike about how unbelievably grim the accommodation was. People said that it was unclean and that it was really basic. And while I do agree that the accommodation was very, very basic, I don't agree that it was remarkably grim or notably unclean. The toilets towards the top of the mountain were definitely less than up to snuff, but other than that, I never really felt like anything in the environment of the tea houses that we stayed in was like notably dirty or filthy. We obviously hiked the trail at the very beginning of the hiking season. If you were to hike the trail during peak season, your accommodation experience might be a little bit different. For instance, you would probably have to share a dorm room, which is where there are multiple twin beds shared by multiple people from multiple groups. You would essentially be staying in a dorm room with strangers. Of course, this is a great way if you're hiking solo to make friends, but that might not be everyone's cup of tea. Because we hiked so early in the season, we were able to have like double rooms, the pairs of us, which was really nice. There were only a few times that more than 2 of us had to share a room at a time, and it was usually like 2 sets of 3, that kind of thing. The bedrooms in all the tea houses were basic. You had a pillow, a bed with a fitted sheet, and like a really thick comforter quilt. We have heard stories that not all of the tea houses during the main peak season wash the sheets and the pillowcases in between guests because there's just too many people hiking the trail, one right after the other, to wash things, dry them, remake the beds. If that makes you uncomfortable, then my suggestion would be to pack your own sleep sheet. It's really common on multiple day hikes for hikers to bring a sleep sheet. It's like a sheet that you bring from home that you put down on the bed before sleeping on it. That way your body is only really touching your sheet. Another thing that you can do, which is what we did, was rent a sleeping bag, or you can bring your own if you have it. You can also buy them from the shops in town. We rented our sleeping bag from a shop in Pokhara that had a really good reputation for cleanliness. Our tour guide pointed it out. We went, we rented it. It was like a couple of dollars a day, I think, or maybe $1 a day. And it just made us feel a little bit better knowing that we had our clean sleeping bag to sleep in every night on top of a really comfy bed. Going up the mountain, hot showers, Wi-Fi, and charging outlets have a cost associated with them. Typically, it's a couple of dollars. Towards the top, it's usually $3 or $4. You should keep in mind that Wi-Fi isn't always working, so you will be charged money, and then if the Wi-Fi cuts out, there's not really any sort of refund process. It's just the Wi-Fi's not working, you paid for Wi-Fi, you're out the money. Luke and I opted to just not pay for Wi-Fi and enjoy being disconnected, enjoy the mountain views, and just kind of take in where we were. Because of a lack of stable Wi-Fi, my tip is still to bring a journal if you want to jot some things down, or card games, something that doesn't take up a lot of room in your bag and isn't heavy, but will keep you entertained over those long evenings, because once it's dark at the tea houses, there really isn't that much to do. As you go up the mountain, the accommodation does get more basic. For instance, towards the beginning of our trek, we had rooms in tea houses that had ensuite showers and toilets. And about 3 or 4 days into the trek, that stopped completely, and toilets and showers were outside of the room, shared amongst all of the other trekkers. The dining hall is always a common space. There's usually a fire in the dining hall, which is nice because people will be gathered around, talking about their day, warming up, maybe drying some clothes that they've spot washed. One of the things I will say about the accommodation is that while it wasn't unclean per se, there was definitely a damp feeling in some of the rooms, especially higher up the mountain, because there's no heating or anything in the rooms. It sort of felt like if the day was cold or if the day was a bit wet, then the rooms sort of felt a bit wet as well. So if you feel like you're going to be cold, or if you sleep cold, make sure you bring extra socks, just for sleeping, or extra cozies, sweatpants, whatever you want to call them, to stay warm at night, and try to keep them as dry as possible so that after a long day of trekking, you can slip into something that you know is going to be dry, you know is going to be warm, and you can enjoy your evening. That's the end of day 5. Be sure to stick around next week for day 6, and from there things get really interesting. So you're going to want to make sure you're subscribed to our channel below, hit the like button, and follow me on Instagram at Silly Little Kiwi if you want more photo content. If you're looking for travel tips and in-depth guides, head to my blog, sillylittlekiwi.com, and I'll see you next Sunday for day 6.